So, after a fairly eventful afternoon and an unexpected incident of B&E at the Roland residence, we start our evening of day 2 by heading over to the high school, where we are actually not going to be talking to Liz this time around. Instead, we're going to be visiting someone else in the teacher's lounge adjacent to the library, though first, we do want to check out this poster. It seems to talk about a party that happened at the start of the month, which, a bit sad we missed out on. But if we do happen to read the poster again, we do get a phone number for the chief of the party committee. Now, it is definitely worth collecting as many phone numbers as we can. Even though this one might not seem immediately useful, it's pretty much going to be useful fairly soon. But yeah, by coming at this point in the day, there is this new person here waiting in the teacher's lounge. And yeah, you might recall having visited Barbara and Liz in the hospital on the previous day. They did mention Kathy's homeroom teacher, Miss Holly, here. And it's from her that we can hopefully glean some additional insight that I'm assuming nobody else in town might have. As you can probably guess, though, she's not going to be immediately forthcoming with information, especially since we just seem to be some random student from the high school. Though we do manage to get a little bit of edge in this situation by her assumption that we are Kathy's mysterious unknown boyfriend. And I guess a little bit of subterfuge won't really hurt the situation. So we just kind of roll with it, especially if it does manage to get us a little bit of information on the mysterious Kathy. Sadly, what Miss Holly seems to give us is pretty much the same amount of information that any random person in town might have on Kathy. She was a bit of a loner, a bit of an introvert. Didn't really seem to talk to anybody. I guess could be equivalent to what the Japanese might call a hikimori, or just a shut-in. But yeah, it kind of went beyond just merely avoiding people. Kathy had a very, let's say, detrimental personality. She was not just shy, she really, really wanted to keep away from people. To the point where it almost came across as a bit, let's say, Arctic in her personality. Which sadly doesn't really help us in understanding why she might have gone out into the forest on Christmas Eve with Emma, or, with a possible mysterious man for some romantic interlude. And honestly, I feel I understand what the teacher is trying to do to get Kathy to be a bit more social, but, if it's not hurting anybody, just let Kathy do what she wants to do. She wasn't being, actively malicious with anybody. And sadly, it seems that, with this push and trying to learn more about Kathy, the teacher instead gets met with a pretty creepy response about why Kathy doesn't need any friends, and she says it's because she has God and just her father. Definitely a weird response, and Matthew, as always, with his astute observations, whether they be that's gross or that's creepy. But yeah, Miss Holly seems to have thought that there was something deeper going on, that this was just a surface-level facade that Kathy was trying to put up, possibly to mask some inner turmoil, though, yet again, as to what that might be, I don't really think Holly was privy to that at all. Beyond that, as was kind of already previously covered, Kathy really didn't have a lot of friends. But it was strange one day when Kathy decided that she wanted to join the Full Moon Party Planning Committee. Yeah, that poster we just read outside, for some reason, Kathy decided all of a sudden that she really wanted to be a part of that. And that kind of goes exactly full circle as to why we managed to, get that number before we headed in here. Now, the thing is, while she did seem pretty excited to join the committee, and Holly was all about, that social activity and a little bit of extracurricular after-school action, sadly, it, much like Kathy's response to the whole, why don't you have any friends? Because I have God and my father, it seems like the want to join the committee was just a surface-level activity, and yeah, she pretty much dumped it immediately and just went back to her old shut-in ways. But still, really strange activity. Must be something deeper. Might also be connected with her mysterious death and Emma's disappearance. If we still keep to that line of thought that Emma and Kathy's disappearance, or the fact that they were out in the forest on the same night, had any real connection. But yeah, at least a little bit of information from Miss Holly. Nothing too new outside the fact she decided to join that planning committee. But since we did manage to get that number, I figure it might be a good opportunity to use our phone and try to contact the chief of the planning committee. Now, there are plenty of times when people are on very set schedules. They might not always be available to answer their phones. The good thing is the party planning chief is usually pretty much available, especially around this time. So if you manage to plan out the conversation with Miss Holly here, you're pretty much able to freely contact the party chief. And after getting a bit of confirmation that we are talking to the right person, we are going to go full into detective mode and figure out any information we can about little old Kathy. Indeed, the chief does remember Kathy, and in fact remembers that she was pretty uncooperative. I mean, I can imagine since Kathy wasn't really a people person and she just kind of dumped out of the committee pretty immediately. And yeah, we do still have to keep up some type of subterfuge here. Yet again, we can't really say that we are actively investigating anything. We don't want to really get Morgan's attention and have people think that we are actively working with the police or anything. But yeah, it appears that, Kathy did give something of an ulterior motive for joining the party committee. That she was actively rebelling against Father Barton. Doesn't really make sense why Father Barton would be against her joining an extracurricular activity, but there is a deeper reason for all that. While the planning committee chief doesn't have a full picture of why this was a rebellion, Kathy did admit that, I guess the party celebrating the full moon was like worshipping the devil, and that she got this idea due to a painting in the basement of her house showing the devil worshipping a full moon. Now, when they say house, I don't know if that means that the father and Kathy lived at the church, but it would seem exceptionally strange, no matter what, for a man of the cloth to have just a painting of the devil in his basement. Yeah, definitely just layers and layers of confusion here. To Miss Holly, Kathy represented the idea of her father as being, her one and only friend, probably her sanctuary away from the world. Well, to the party planning committee chief, she was saying, nope, I'm doing this to actively rebel against my father. And it just goes back to this whole, dual personality that I think people seem to associate with both Kathy and Emma. So, quite a bit of useful information there, pretty unexpectedly too. You wouldn't think that somebody running the dance that happened earlier on in the month would have such useful information, but you just never know. Still, it does strike me that after all this running around, we're over halfway through the day, and we haven't eaten anything today, so it might be worth hitting up the diner for right now. And wouldn't you know it, there's a motorcycle parked outside, and from what we learned from Old Man Perry, mysterious Jason Voorhees also rides a motorcycle, so maybe he's also catching a bite to eat. Instead, it just turns out to be Mel. Hopefully he doesn't learn about this other guy just running around town on a motorcycle. He might get jealous. He seems pretty petty like that. Still, we managed to stumble into what appears to be a pretty heated argument between him and Lorraine. He is trying to get Lorraine to do something, and she is pretty much adamant against doing it. And yeah, once he notices that Detective Matthew is on the scene, he is pretty tight-lipped. While I don't feel that he has really onto us as an investigative force, he is probably still pretty understanding against, just rambling on whenever he's trying to do some illicit activity. And sadly, Matthew, just not really good at reading people. His wants to ingratiate himself with Lorraine kind of backfire here. And instead of being able to get any more information out of Lorraine about what they might have been talking about, that's pretty much the end of that conversation. Which also might mean that we might not be getting the best service here at Heinz Diner this evening, so I guess I'm just going to have to hold off on eating for right now. Instead, I'm going to eavesdrop on another conversation here at this booth. Yeah, while it might not be evident from their dress or just the fact that they're here in the diner at all, it's pretty evident after hearing them talk that they are workers from Aston Farms, and yet again it seems that Dennis has not improved their living conditions. So, in an effort, I want to say civil disobedience, they are going to protest by calling him every morning. It's somewhat civil disobedience, but it's also kind of getting into the realm of harassment. But what's most important here is that by overhearing this conversation, we do manage to get Dennis's number. Yeah, this is a number that's super, super easy to miss, and hopefully it will come in use for us later on. I mean, I would say I would side with the workers here, but I really don't want to harass people. At least not unnecessarily, I'll say. But yeah, as dinner is no longer an option, I think I want to go visit Sheriff Morgan again. While we don't really have a lot of new information to share with him, minus what we learned about Kathy and I think from Old Man Perry regarding the B&E, what I really wanted to check up on was that necklace that we found during the morning with that bear hunt. It does seem like our assumptions were correct, and not only was the necklace as Kathy, but strangely, she got it from Father Barton of all people. I mean, I really couldn't see anybody else she might have gotten it from, but I don't really understand how Father Barton would have gotten the necklace in the first place. He also mentions that Father Barton said that someone stole the necklace from Kathy, and my first assumption would be criminal mastermind Bear. But yeah, it's more... Morgan's hypothesis is more along the lines that Kathy just managed to get the necklace back in the interim, maybe didn't tell Father Barton. And yeah, during the bear attack, the necklace from Kathy got caught up on the bear's claws. It does make sense. I mean, there's still the question of, why Kathy was out there in the first place, why she had an Indian artifact necklace, yeah. Even though we managed to get some sense out of some things, there's just still so many questions that need unraveling here. Still, there's something more important we need to get to, and it's something we learned about by hiding out in Mel's room on the previous day. And that was that he mentioned that he was meeting someone at the cemetery at 9 p.m. And true to his word, Mel is waiting in the darkness here. We managed to find a pretty good vantage point to eavesdrop on the conversation. From here, we are able to pick up on a brand new character into the story, Bonehead. Definitely an unsavory looking character from that little portrait we have of him. And his name, while a bit comical, I think is meant to be rough and gruff and, biker gang-esque. Still, he does mention something about Emma's house being broken into and the fact that, I guess, they have no need to worry about Emma anymore. And that does make me recall back when we were overhearing the conversation between, I guess, Mel and Bonehead on the phone. Mel did mention that he did take care of the Emma problem. Lots of questions that we are going to have to follow up with on Mel here. Though there is a deeper problem that I guess Mel himself has to deal with. That's the fact that he seems to owe money to old Bonehead here. That's a bit strange to me, considering that Mel is probably the richest kid in all of town. Why is he having to borrow money from this unsavory gent? Well, it seems that any of the money problems he's going to have is going to be all solved tomorrow around noon. And quite realistically, Bonehead is quite a little curious about where he's going to be coming into all this money. But Mel just kind of dissuades him from inquiring too much about it. All he needs to care about is he's going to get that money back come hell or high water. And that's perfectly fine with Bonehead. Though he does kind of mention, while he doesn't really care how he gets the money, he just needs that money as quickly as possible. Because this third party apparently won't really wait much longer. So I guess Bonehead is not really the problem here. It's whatever guy is calling the shots for Bonehead. I don't know if that means that there is some higher up power than the almighty dollar in this town, because my assumption would be that the Aston family should be able to pay their way out of any situation, but I guess there's some criminal element that has more control over the town than anybody really understands. Still, what does all this have to do with Emma? Why is Emma's house being broken into even a a part of this equation, and I guess why is her disappearance going to make things easier for Mel here? Well, I mean, that was a useful piece of intel there to get. Definitely cast even more suspicions upon Mel and whatever dastardly deeds he's a part of. In fact, we are going to want to keep following up on Mel, because if we manage to head over to the diner, see that he is getting I guess a late night snack at the old Heinz Diner. Though I think this place should be closed by now. In fact, we are not going to be going in at all. Instead, we are going to get a little bit more information about what's probably, I don't know, I'm going to say is pretty evident at this point about what Mel's plan is. Yeah, he mentioned with the discussion with Bonehead that he was going to come into some money tomorrow at noon, and he was trying to get Lorraine to do something for him, let's say to be an accomplice in something. And yeah, his actions here make it seem like he is going to try to, I'm going to say, fake a robbery here at the diner to, I guess, get some money that I'm assuming insurance will cover back, and I guess will break even for Lorraine and her family, but yeah, it definitely seems like a pretty sketchy situation all around, and just makes me feel pretty bad for Lorraine and her bad relationship decisions. But I guess that means we are going to definitely be coming back here for lunch tomorrow. I mean, anything that happens with Mel at this point, I feel is going to have some connections with Emma, and in turn is going to be pretty key to our investigations. And while it is getting a bit late, I don't want to call it a night just yet. Instead, as with any kind of party person, I want to cap off my night at the local watering hole. And it also works out because, as per the previous night, Father Barton is just kind of chilling out here. Which means we can ask him a bit more about that necklace that he, I guess, kind of randomly gave to Kathy. And with a little bit of poking and prodding, we do manage to stir up his memories about where he got that necklace from. It seems like a native artifact was just kind of sitting in the church basement, and Kathy, seeing it, decided that it was totally part of her style, which Father Barton wasn't really all for, considering that the necklace seemed to be some talisman of bad luck, I suppose. But on our inquiry as to why it was bad luck, instead he seems to go off on some metaphorical tale about the fact that the necklace was worn by a devil. It's a bit strange. I mean, I think to some degree, if you're a man of the cloth, you do have to have some grasp of the supernatural, but yeah, I don't think he's talking about an actual devil. He's talking about something from in the past. And yeah, sadly, he is not really going to be all in telling us about this old tale. Instead, the phrasing of old tale makes me think that it's something that Barbara might be able to shed a little bit of light on. Also, while Father Barton did mention to Sheriff Morgan that the necklace was taken from Kathy, seems that was a bit of a misnomer, a little bit of misinformation, I guess. Instead, the necklace wasn't so much taken as Kathy gave it to someone that she said needed it more than her. It's a bit strange to give away something that seems to give bad luck. But yeah, I guess Kathy did give it away and then managed to get it back the night that she got attacked, though it kind of makes me wonder more if instead, while Kathy got attacked by the bear, someone else who also had the necklace got attacked as well. Seems a little bit more plausible in the case that, now that we learn that Kathy purposely gave the necklace away to someone that I guess she was close to. But yeah, since we are a little bit later than usual at the bar here, I don't really think that James is going to be much conversation to us. Instead, we want to talk to this familiar, albeit hard to pin down individual here. Yeah, this is Lorraine. It's a bit hard to identify her when she's not in her waitress uniform, but yeah, she's at least in high spirits. She seems to have come to the bar here to see Isabella. And in turn, she thinks that's why we're here as well. And she gives us a little useful piece of information where if we want to talk to Isabella outside the bar, that we should probably catch her around 12:30 at night. But, that's not really why we came here. Though, learning that there is going to be someone singing here tonight seems like a good opportunity to get a little bit of R&R after a pretty stressful, involved day. We did take down a bear and everything. Had to deal with a breaking and entering and the idea that Jason Voorhees is somewhere in town. It's just so much to deal with. And I am super excited to hear the sultry song stylings of Isabella with her platinum hair. And it appears I'm not alone either, as she has a pretty adamant superfan front row and center. Well, I guess front row and off to the right side. Problem is, I guess we are not going to be hearing her perform tonight. And while I am a bit crestfallen, I don't really ever want to force somebody to perform against their will or anything. Also seems like Wolf is not super happy about the lack of a performance tonight, but yeah, Isabella has some personal things to attend to, so I guess we are going to just have to put a rain check on whatever magical performance she has to give us. But we do get some impression that, maybe if we come back tomorrow night, we might be able to hear her song. And that definitely seems like something to maybe put in a little investigation time into. Especially because this avid superfan up here, I don't know. Something about him makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. In fact, it also seems like Isabella has a similar feel. I can only assume that's why this sunglasses-wearing bodyguard is also guarding the door. Still, I think with all that out of the way, our nightcap is, I don't want to say ruined, but I think we've got enough fun out of our evening at Bar Wolf. And I think we've had a pretty good day overall. I mean, we're still alive. We're still on the trail of figuring out not only if there's some connection with Emma and Kathy, but just where, I guess, Emma might be. I mean, Mel seems to know a lot. But yeah, I think with all that out of the way, going to go ahead and get a good night's rest, and hopefully you will join me next time as we head into day 3 of Mizzurna Falls.